Jason Lee Podcast.
Welcome to a special episode of the Jason Lee Podcast. Now, typically, I'd be on here talking about celebrities, but I wanted to do something for hometown. All of you out there in Stockton that have been supporting me in my quest to become the next city councilman for District 6, I wanted to make sure that I use my platform responsibly to introduce to you, for some, two people that are also running. One, Christina Fugazi, who's running as the mayoral candidate, and Mario Enriquez, who's running for District 4. Now, in Stockton, that city government is led by four people who all are aligned. They all are aligned for the interests that you all have as voters. And so I wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to hear from them directly. So sit back, relax, and here they are. All right, bet you didn't think I would do this. I am actually sitting here with two individuals that I'm running with in Stockton, California. Everybody knows that I'm running for city council. Well, I've told you all that it takes more than just me to make things happen. In fact, I have educated everybody in the city that it takes 4 votes. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, count along with me, in order to get things done. And I wanted to bring two people here on the Jason Lee Podcast that I'm working with, that I believe in, and that we just came off the heels of a very big event in Stockton. So please welcome Christina Fugazi and Mario Enriquez. We actually have applause. We don't have a budget for a little studio. We do what we can. Speaking of budget, what a transition. When you started on city council, well, first of all, introduce yourselves, what you're running for.
Christina Fugazi, and I am running for mayor.
And Mario Enriquez, running for City Council, District 4.
Okay, so speaking of budgets, when you were on the city council before as vice mayor, what was the budget then versus what is the budget now?
So we were just coming out of bankruptcy, and our budget was about $350 million. Now the budget is $956 million. So we're almost at $1 billion budget.
And so my question is why does Stockton still, in some ways, look like a bankrupt city, having gone through the bankruptcy several years ago?
So we over budget and underestimate revenues, and then that money goes into other funds instead of what really should be getting done in our city. That money is just not being spent in a proper way.
Mm. So when you see the city where it is today versus when you were there as vice mayor, what is your assessment on why it's still pretty much the same?
Well, it has to do with management. I mean, we have people who we entrust to carry out the priorities of council, and it just isn't happening. We used to have more employees. Now we have less. We used to have more in a lot of areas. We had more in our recreation programs for our children. We had more employees. We had more people that were cleaning up our streets, filling potholes. We just had more. And now we have more money, but we're getting less in terms of services for the people in the city of Stockton.
But that just seems criminal. Like, if you go and look at District 6, I always talk about my district, District 6, where you can go to a vape shop or a liquor store, but you can't find a healthy food destination. I talk about, when my cousins used to tell my grandma that they were sick, she would say, go lay down, because there's no clinic to go to, no hospital in the immediate area of Southeast Stockton, or even Western Ranch, unless you want to go to the county hospital. And so why is it that you believe the city hasn't made communities like District 6 a priority, or even District 5 in some areas?
Well, for me, I believe the truth is because South Stockton doesn't really have a voice. They don't have a lot of community engagement. You have people that have been disenfranchised for decades that just say, hey, it's a fight that I don't have in me. And they don't have a representative that is willing to fight for them either.
And that's why we're going to change that. Mario, tell everybody about you and how you went away and why you decided to come back like me.
Yeah, no, and that's how we are very similar in many ways. So yeah, I graduated from UOP, raised in the Central Valley, and I say this all the time to a lot of folks. Forbes magazine called Stockton the most miserable city in America, a city that gave me and my mom a lot during our time of need. So I said, I'm going to go out to DC, learn as much as I can from all the top policy experts, all the organizations, all the fellowships I can get to be involved with, and then come back and say, you know what, I've done this to invest in myself. Now I want to invest in my community as one individual, but collectively working with other like-minded leaders like the two of you to say, this is a change we can bring. We each have skill sets that are very unique that collectively at the decision-making table, that's where we can see the real change in Stockton. And that's really was my why to do, now that I'm back, I can say I've done everything I think I could have done to be the best prepared public servant. I'm ready to go and ready to win this.
Now, we saw Mario early on in the debates, and me and my family were like, that guy is smart. We just recently had another forum recently at the Delta College. I feel really good about mine, but I feel extremely good about yours. There is a complete distinction between you and the person you're running against. He's running against somebody who is backed by the establishment in the city and backed by a lot of the local Republican folks who have pretty much had a stronghold on the city for many years. What do you think is a distinct difference between you and your counterpart?
Yeah, and that's something I made very clear at the forum, is that we're two very different people. Look, I think the thing is, we all can care. People that run for office, it takes a lot to run for office, especially in the San Joaquin County, across the country. But even though you care, you have to really think about who's the most qualified to run for office. And to Christina's point about earlier about South Stockton, our communities have been traumatized for so long that we continue to elect the same kind of leader. People that care, great. We all care too. But what's the next step? And that's what I was asking myself for 15 years, is that it doesn't matter political, we can talk about political party, different religion, ideology, sexual orientation. We can talk about all of that. We can all be different. But at the decision-making table, what's really different? It's the insights that we are bringing to the table that no one else has. So for my opponent, she's a well-known nonprofit leader. That's great. Stay in your lane, because there are other people that have more insights and knowledge to policy and government and building consensus to actually represent the district, one that represents all diverse communities. And that's something that I know I have, and my opponent just won't ever have anytime soon.
And that experience of going to DC, being able to work with all the different organizations you've worked with, to see the work that's being done on a national level and all the way down to local level. Do you think that gives you an advantage in terms of having that lens?
Absolutely. I worked for members of Congress, both on the House and the Senate side. I had to work with Republicans and Democrats to get legislative issues done, building consensus. I've had to work in the Pittsburgh City Council, working for a council member, understanding that infrastructure in Pennsylvania, then coming back here to say, yeah, these are the skill sets that I know how to apply, understanding policy, reading it, but also translating it to the community, right? If we're out there as council members and mayor, we're going to our constituents, and they're going to get dubbed down, overwhelmed with the policy. But if you can interject it with the story and saying, this is how the impact's really happening, they'll be like, wow, I get it. It's glad to see that my leader is coming to my district and educating me on what's really happening behind the scenes. And I know the three of us are really intentional about making government more transparent for the people that we serve.
Now, Christina always says money on the table. So I brought money. It's not real money, so don't try to, borrow it. This is money on the table. Explain to people when you say that the city is leaving money on the table, because I continue to find it and it gets frustrating every single time.
So there are different pots of the money that are available through the state and federal government. We have left literally hundreds of millions of dollars on the table. And let me give you a perfect example. I know that there's been money for encampment cleanups. Cities that are 1/3 of the size of Stockton received money. We have a city not far from us, Antioch, that received something like $8 million, and we received nothing. Why? Because we didn't apply. And then
the current city leadership.
The city of Stockton did not apply. But I want to take it one step further. We have employees who are fabulous, who see opportunities. We had an employee who got into a contest to redo one of our parks. We have like 64 parks in the city of Stockton. And so this employee applied for the money through this contest and won it for our city. She won a fully remodeled park for the city of Stockton. And she was excited. She told her supervisor and the city manager, and they were like, why did you apply for that? Like, we're not going to take it. We don't need it. And that employee said, I'm done. I quit. That was their last day.
And that was one of the frustrating things when I was running, and we had brought Mark Fawcett from the state, who's leading the Prop 1 money. So just so you know, there's a whole reorganization of mental health services in California. from Governor Newsom. Forget what you think about him, but he actually made this change with Prop 1. We brought the individual here before the governor made the announcement of $6.38 billion in funding. Nobody from the city came with the exception of Councilman Padilla. And then they made it kind of like a joke, like, well, we have our own relationships and still have yet to date applied for the Prop 1 money, whereas I brought the county and they're probably going to get somewhere around $74 million. We then, in that process, discovered $160 million of state money, $12 million of which was for opioid response for young people. Knowing that there's an epidemic in the Central Valley with opioid use and all of that, no money just left on the table. And then we just discovered the money you're talking about where some of these other cities, and homelessness being a critical thing in Stockton. Why is it that they keep using this as a campaign conversation when they really have shown that there's no real action being taken, even with the navigation center being not functional yet?
Homelessness is a business. It is a multi-million, billion-dollar business. And some people, that's their livelihood. And I'm not talking about the homeless people. I'm talking about the CBOs, the community-based organizations that then get this money that's passed through from the city to their organization. And then we don't have anything to show for it, which again is criminal, as you said earlier. I believe that's criminal, that when we give you money, the city gives you money to do something, you need to do it. Mm-hmm. And you need to be held accountable if you don't. And you should be giving regular updates. So the navigation center was supposed to be done in 2022. We're almost in 2025. It's still not done. It was supposed to be done in 4 months.
And the money's been sent.
Then they've asked for more. And guess what? They asked for more. And they continue to ask for more when we had given enough money to have it done. And then issue after issue, questionable spending. And nobody is holding anybody's feet to the fire on that.
Yeah. I've already said when I get elected, Ben Crump, as you know, hey, Ben, he endorsed me. I've already said we're going to figure out how to not only look at housing and homelessness through the lenses of how some of these landlords or slumlords are treating people, but also just this issue, auditing the money, tracking the money. The devil is in the details, and somewhere all that money that you're paying is going to somewhere. And I've said recently that you're going to go to jail if you're doing anything wrong with the money. Mario has also been serving in the capacity as a translator for the community because in Stockton, 45% of the community is Latino, and they offer no translation services for any other culture that doesn't speak English as a first language. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, I was taken aback by it. I mean, I think when we all win, I think I'll be one of the few Spanish speakers on the council. And, the fact that we're 45% Latino in the city of Stockton, and of course, one of the most diverse cities, it still boggles my mind that a city being one of the largest cities in the state still cannot produce translation services for our people, let alone people who want to come and voice their opinions. But then they come to City Hall and the first impression they get is, oh, glad you're here, but we have no one to translate your needs for the city that's serving you. That I still don't understand and get it. And I remember when I was sitting at a city council meeting, I had a woman that came up to me and literally gave me a flashcard. And it said, and I have it in my office, and it literally says, "Can you translate for my friend?" And then, she takes me to the back. We go out to the room and we're talking in Spanish. And she said, "Yeah, I'm from Western Ranch. There was a shooting that just happened." And then we go in and I'm like, "Yeah, of course." And then that's when I found out that the city wasn't providing services. So I said, as a son of immigrants, my mom taught me Spanish growing up, and I was like, it's my duty to serve my community, and we did it. But I mean, to your point too, right, where the city then comes and gives a green card, which I know you've expressed.
Hold on, if you missed this, after 8 months of advocacy for them to provide translation, they decided to do it. But in order for the Spanish-speaking people in the community to go up and speak, they had to fill out a green card. Don't believe me? Take a look. But I want to bring something to your attention, because although today is Thursday and it's not Tell the Truth Tuesday, I'm going to do Tell That Talk Thursday, because I saw an observation when I was at City Hall this past week that I have to bring to your attention. Now, when you go down to City Hall and you want to speak at City Council, you have to fill out a blue card. The blue card basically says, persons addressing the council request to speak. This is the request to speak card. You give it to the city clerk. Now, the city clerk is responsible for working with the mayor and the city council to find translation services. You remember when I made this an issue during my last campaign, they fired that city clerk, and she was a Latina. First time ever disciplined, fired, 12 years of service, single mother, veteran, fired because she was working with me to find translation services. So anyway, now they provide translation services for Latinos. But guess what? You got to come down, instead of filling out the blue card only for the Latinos, you got to fill out a green card. They're making the Spanish speakers fill out a green card. Not the blue card, the green card. The only difference with this card and this card is that this card says Espanol and it's in English. It's all English except for Espanol, not the blue card. They could have just put Espanol on the blue card, but they want to make sure that the Mexicans fill out a green card. Kim Wormsley's behind this because she's the one that went after the Latina city clerk who made this a priority. You're gonna say it's an accident, it's a mistake, it's an oversight. Nah, you said, and when you come down to speak to city council, if you're Mexican and speak Spanish, you gotta fill out a green card. You deserve better leadership. November 5th, vote me in, somebody who can actually say in a meeting, why are we gonna make the blue card green for Spanish speakers and it's in English? How crazy was that?
Yeah, it's wild to me. And as someone that used to work for the largest Latino civil rights organization in the country, and the fact that we have organizations in Stockton like Visionary Home Builders and El Concilio that are affiliates of this national organization, the fact that we don't have that type of advocacy, even now was surprising, but it's going to take leaders like us. We get public comment. We're going to change the policies to say these are the services that City Hall is providing for our people, and to also encourage more people to come. I've noticed even after that first incident, when you shed light to it, we started seeing more people come, especially from Western Ranch, right? They're inspired to know, wow, people are coming to us. Government is accessible, and now they're more inclined to come to City Hall. And I think that was the inspiring part for me, where even in my own district, I've talked to people directly, and then the next meeting they come to City Hall and they said, "Oh, I came because of you," or "You told me to show up to share my concern." And it's that
I saw some of them at our forum too.
Oh, yeah?
She was winking. I was like, yeah. Now they didn't have translation services there, so I'm not sure if she understood it, but we have to fix that. I want to go through some of the things that all of us are out promising things to people in terms of our vision and what we want to see. And I'm going to tell you some of mine that are very simple. I want to bring safety to my community, my district. We just had a 14-year-old murdered last week. Before that, we've had multiple young people killed at Food for Less and different things. Some things that I've committed, I want to bring police substations to Western Ranch and Southeast Stockton. Is that something that you all support?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Safety should be a non-issue. It shouldn't even be a long conversation. You see how we didn't politic it or have a long conversation? Because we realize that your kids deserve to make it home after school. You deserve to be able to go to Food for Less and get something to eat for dinner without getting robbed in the parking lot. I want to decrease some of the smoke shops and liquor stores. I feel like we have too many. Is that something that you could support?
Yes. Especially as an educator, these kids.
I didn't pay them for their vote. I didn't lobby their vote. We've just been talking about a city that has one smoke shop per 2,500 residents and no real accountability to building healthy grocery stores in my community, which is something else I want to do. Can I bring? Would you support bringing a healthy grocery store to Southeast Stockton?
Yes.
This is what leadership looks like. Christina, what are you out telling people as you talk to them about what you want to see for the city?
Well, going off of what you said, public safety is an absolute. We can't address any of the other issues we have if we don't have a safe city. Bottom line. Community policing is important too, because as you talk about the T, there isn't a lot of trust in our communities, especially in our disadvantaged communities, that when the police come in, it's never for something good. Our police officer, I'd love it if they were coaching our little league teams or our basketball teams, just to say, hey, police officers are people too, and build those relationships. But that community policing model is so important because you're assigned to a geographical area, a neighborhood, a community.
And you're invested.
Yes, and you get to know the people that live in that, and they say, "Oh, there's Officer Lee." Say hi, Officer Lee. So I think that is imperative that we do that. The other thing is we're understaffed. We're grossly understaffed in our police department. We have a number of, they count them as officers, but they're in school. They're in the police academy. They're not yet police officers. So when we say we have 344 police officers, or now 367, we have 25 that are in the academy. They're not working.
And we
yet.
promised over 400 and something.
485 officers, which still is too few. There has been studies about Stockton. We should be having 2 officers at a minimum per 1,000 residents. So 2 officers per 1,000 residents. Our response times are abysmal. They don't even show up a lot of times because they're only at the highest priority calls. So if you feel like you're at home and somebody's robbing your home and you don't know if they have a weapon or not, and you call 911, chances are nobody's going to show up while that person maybe is still in your house.
That's kind of scary.
It's absolutely scary. And that's what our citizens are facing every single day.
How do we fix the Ask Stockton app? Because everybody I talk to is pissed off about this. You ask Stockton and Stockton don't got an answer.
Well, I love Ask Stockton app initially, but now it just goes into a folder. And the thing that upsets people is they say, completed. No, that pothole's still there. No, that couch is still on the corner. No, you could say
the abandoned car, the illegal dumping.
Right. It's still there. The light? We have all of our street lights. There are neighborhoods where all the wires have been stolen and it is pitch black at night. So talk about being afraid. You have that layer upon it. And so Ask Stockton, there is a system where it creates a work order, but guess what? We don't have enough employees in order to fix those things that people are reporting. But I don't think the public should have to have the burden of reporting those in the first place. We have employees that should be driving around.
We should have more code enforcement officers.
Well, and people in public works department. The people in public works are the ones that are filling those potholes, repairing those gutters, curbs, sidewalks. They're taking trash from the city right away. And our police department has to be out there to be present when a car is being towed away, which we can't afford to have police officers sitting with an abandoned car waiting for it to get towed away.
But this is why you need really strong leadership, because the thing that she said and all of that, that's really important to hone in on, is that you can't fix everything else until you make it a safe city. Think about it like this, right? If you're going to bring this money as a business owner to Stockton and invest in the city, would you do it if the business is going to get robbed, vandalized, if it's going to get broken into? No. Why? Because you'd be throwing money away. That is basically what you're saying. And so when we talk to a lot of business leaders, and I know like a Miracle Mile is a huge thing, people want to bring more activities. They want to have more support from the city, where right now, Christina has highlighted that the city is gouging them by charging $10,000 just to have a community event so businesses thrive, one of which we want to eliminate that so we can partner with businesses to be able to make money in the city, right? When you think about what she was saying about making it a safer city, what are you hearing when you're in the Miracle Mile? What are you committing to your people?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the thing I hear the most in Miracle Mile and also another small business called Yosemite Street Village has been that safety. People are breaking in. There's a lot of unhoused folks in the streets. Lighting's been a major issue. There's not sufficient security cameras. So, we did get a $20 million investment from the state, but even that's not enough, right? It's a dime in the bucket. And, we're still trying to think about more ways to get funding. Collectively, city, I know they'll be reaching out to the city council leadership for that funding, but we hear it all across. To your point, we can't have more businesses grow in the Miracle Mile or Yosemite Street if they don't feel safe, or right, they're just wasting their money if they're not really producing a diverse range of businesses, right? Not just barbershops and coffee shops, which are great, but we also need to think more outside the box of what other small businesses we can support to bring in to really diversify those neighborhoods.
And go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and we know what works. And what would be great for small business districts like that is to have bicycle officers that are riding bicycles that are going up and down, because if you're making a call, you have to wait for a unit to show up. But if you assign officers, which we've done downtown in the downtown core area, and it proved to be very successful. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to allocate it to other parts of our city.
And I want people to understand, because I want to give a shout out to Chief McFadden, who's been doing a phenomenal job with what he has. Think about it. If you were working at a job and your boss didn't give you the resources you need to be successful or effective in your job, but you were doing the best you can, break your neck every day. That's what's happening at the police department. So we're not blaming the chief and the officers over there, because they are doing what they can with what they got. But they are managed by the city manager, and the city manager is accountable to the city council. But again, if you don't hold your city management accountable, your city staff accountable, then they kind of do whatever they want, and then you reap the benefit of that freedom. So speaking of police and fire, there's this big measure in. Now, I am not endorsed by these folks. I want to say that a disclaimer, but I have come out saying very clearly, I think that binding arbitration is not a bad thing. In fact, I support Measure N because it holds bad managers accountable to following the collective bargaining agreements, and it also holds them accountable for making sure that you're following the rights and protections that workers have in the workplace. And I've spent 11 years working for a union. We had lots of arbitrations and grievances there when I first got there, but I realized the parties were just reckless with how the relationship was working, and people were not really focusing on resolving matters. And then once we got that in track and the parties met and made the commitment to following the rules and being fair and negotiating and being fair with one another, we didn't go to arbitration. It was very rare. Why have they turned this thing into a doomsday event if it was to pass?
Well, I'll say I don't understand why the city has an issue with it, considering we used to have binding arbitration all the way up until 2010. And guess what? That whole period before, when we had it, we never had to use it. Not once did we have to go into binding arbitration. The city's standpoint is that this is going to bankrupt the city, and this is going to cost the city money, and this is going to be a person who represents the unions, when that is not the case. That is so far from the truth. Actually, the city has been hiring negotiators, outside negotiators, at the cost of hundreds of thousands of dollars to negotiate and to defend the city on these contracts with the different unions. That is the taxpayer money. The taxpayers have no say in how that money is being spent, but yet it is. And the city wants to, stop this at all costs. And like I said, I don't have a clue as to why.
Yeah. And one of the things too, I think for me, understanding and hearing more from the police and fire is that the fact that this is being brought up just showcases to me that it's an issue, right? They wouldn't just bring it up just for the sake of it. It's clearly showing a lack of leadership in our city government for them who protect our city to say this is something that we are bringing up because it's not solving the issues that we are dealing with while we're doing what we have to do in the city of Stockton. So that says a lot already. And of course, I'm still looking into Measure M, but from what I've been hearing, it's obviously something that's going to be really helpful for our police and fire.
And I'll just say, I am a union member, so I want to make sure I disclose that as an educator. I'm a union member, and we just need to bargain in good faith. And the other thing that upsets people is, when we hire these outside consultants or these outside negotiators, the person currently doing some of the negotiations is the one who he used to work for the city of Stockton
as Bob Dice, right?
As the city manager, and treated people awfully, treated the police awfully, treated the firefighters. It just was not a very nice person to them. And here now they have to sit at the bargaining table with the person that said, we're going to go into bankruptcy and we're going to say it's all your fault.
Well, let me tell you, as somebody who used to represent union workers, you all put a lot of pressure on each other. So you should ask the Police Officers Association, why are you supporting her opponent and my opponent who voted recently to actually fight you on pursuing arbitration? Just want to put that out there, because spilling the tea for me is truth, trust, and transparency. At least at this job. My other job, y'all know what it is. All right, but so there's that. They recently sent a mailer out to everybody in the city that costs you, the taxpayer, thousands and thousands of dollars to fight something that your city police and fire are saying they actually want to feel valued and protected in their job. How backwards is this city? I don't understand why they would do something like that, nor have I ever heard of the city using taxpayer money to not go out and inform people in an unbiased way of the pros and cons, but actually to fight against something that the police and fire want.
And if you want to do a grassroots campaign, okay, if you want to send people out knocking on doors to do your position, to share your position, but we have a voter guide. We have a voter guide that explains the measure. It has proponents and opponents as well as rebuttals. That should be enough. But the fact that there is a stamp on these cards that have been professionally made and mailed out at a cost to the taxpayers that the taxpayers had no say in is absolutely wrong.
Was Measure A scam?
Yes.
Told you. Because she was there when they came up with Measure A and Measure B. She voted against Measure A and voted for Measure B. Why?
Because Measure B was the accountability piece. Measure A was a general fund tax. It was like giving drugs to an addict, which you don't want to do. And Measure B was there to say, no, this isn't how you should be spending the money, or you should be spending it this way. Measure B they're called an advisory commission. They have had their hands tied the entire time. They've asked for audit after audit after audit and have been denied every single time. I'm the only one that said, I want to have an audit of these funds. This is taxpayer money. $234 million should have been going to public safety, and instead it's gone to things like $100 million City Hall.
Do you believe that the mayor and city council, when we get elected, should get a raise?
For me, no. I come from humble beginnings, and I think the work that city council does currently will be a lot different from when we step in. I think we're more hands-on, and we have a more insight to the background, the legislative policy, and all that. But I just say, yeah, no. I think I don't need that extra funding. We do it because we care, right? That's what public servants are for.
Yeah, and I've already said I'm going to donate mine to bringing back I almost said pickleball. Oh my God.
Oh, wow.
This community loves its pickleball. No disrespect to that community. To bringing back Little League, because South Stockton, they are on me about bringing back Little League, and so we're going to work to restore that. So I say no. I know you're taking a pay cut, taking this mayor position. This one's going to hurt. Your colleague, your opponent wants to do the increase, take more tax money for his job. Are you going to do that?
No.
Okay.
Actually, I decreased everybody's pay way back when they forced the mayor to take a lesser salary. I said, well, guess what? Nobody's above a haircut. So whatever percentage he's taking in a pay cut, I vote that council does as well. That was my motion, and it got approved. So we went down to $16,000 a year to be a council member because it's a part-time position. We should have full-time jobs outside of doing that in order to be productive members of our community and really be in tune to what is going on in our community. So I'll be taking a pay cut, but that's okay for me because I love my city and I want my city to be better for everyone.
If they don't really figure out translation before we get there, can we get translation?
Yes.
Can people speak more than 2 minutes at City Hall?
Oh, yes.
You also want to leave City Hall open on a Saturday or whatever?
I want it open 5 days a week because right now they take 2 Fridays off. They have furlough Fridays. And I want it open 1 Saturday a month for people who, let's say they're working in the Bay Area or they're working somewhere else where their hours don't allow them to go during the week so that they can still get services. And here's the bottom line, though. If we see something is not being taken advantage of, then we can go in another direction. But I have heard from people time and time again that, I went down to City Hall on the Friday and they were closed, and how upset they were because they needed to do city business, but they were closed. So I want to make sure that we are open and available for people when we need to be doing their business.
Yeah. There's lots of work to be done. We didn't even fully unpack homelessness because we've seen the numbers in Stockton double. We've seen the navigation center, which we did touch on earlier, still not open. So people don't have that navigation center to go to. We know that the current city council voted to not fund the gospel rescue mission in protecting those 70 beds from closing, because if the county had not stepped in and provided some funding, those beds would be closed and there would be more homeless people on the street. But we've been talking about ideas and plans, not just rent forgiveness or looking at rent stabilization or rent control options. That's always on the table. But, looking at safe places for people to be, giving our parks back to our families, and being accountable to our community who pays all of this tax to have a safe, walkable, livable Stockton, right?
Right.
Make sure you're registered to vote. If you're not registered to vote, you need to go down to the voter registry, to the register of voters, and you need to register there and vote right there. You can do that right now,
Yes.
right? You can do that all the way up to election day?
And even on election day.
Wow. So there's no excuse. And if you feel like your government won't work for you, the three of us are already telling you that we want to do it. Is there anything else that we need to say before we get out of here?
Hey, if you're okay with the status quo, then don't vote. But if you want change, you got to vote.
I already told you that was change that you can believe in, or change you can count on. What's my slogan, Johnny? Change you can count on. You know that. All right, let me give them their flowers because they did a great job today. Peace.
Wow.
The Jason Lee Podcast.